Welcome back. Hope you've had a great week. Today I thought I'd just talk to you about where we're at and that now we're 6 months on into 2020 and we're looking at the next 6 months coming up. So this week we had a great question from Matt. He emailed through to us. Do you think anyone will be able to travel overseas this year at all? I'm planning to go overseas in November. Well, that's a fabulous question, Matt, and I thought today I might try and answer that for you. Coming out of the lockdown, it just feels like things seem to be returning back to normal. And I think that a lot of people coming in to visit us at the moment in store are going, well, when can I go? Well, I had people last week say, can I go to Thailand in August? And then we'll go straight away. We want to go to New Zealand in November. We want to go somewhere this year. So I haven't been able to answer that question up until now, and I think that I'll give you an idea with these 6 questions. And at the end, maybe you can decide whether you think we'll be traveling overseas this year. So number 1, the virus is still with us. Regardless of how everyone feels, and if you walk into your shopping centre or you go downtown, it feels like nothing has changed. But have you been to a restaurant this week? You have to sign your name, you have to put your details down. They still have some restrictions. Now I know things are opening up with that shortly, but it's an indication that the virus is still with us. So we can't let our guard down with regard to that, and certainly here in Australia we're doing really well. But that's not the case everywhere, and I know the Australian government is concerned about that, and each state is concerned about that, and I've got a little bit more information about that for you. So number 2 is there'll be new protocols. And in another video that I have coming up this week, I'll give you the new protocols that have been announced by Cato. Things like masks. Will you be prepared to wear a mask when you go on a plane? Will you be prepared to get to the airport 3 or 4 or 5 hours in advance? Will you be prepared to line up to go through more slowly? Will you be prepared when you get to the other side to have a test when you get there? So there's a lot of things that we need to work through, so we just can't quite jump back out there and take another flight. Australian borders. So at the moment, number 3 is our Australian borders are still closed. So we can't go to Queensland, South Australia or WA at this stage. And I saw a post on Facebook yesterday from someone in Queensland, and they said they're not going to open their borders till New South Wales gets their act together. And I thought that was an interesting feeling from the people in some of the other states and why they're justifying not opening their borders. I can tell you that Queensland is due to open on the 10th of July, so that will be fabulous. At the moment you do have to quarantine, you have to get a pass to go in and to come out, and only Queenslanders can come and go. South Australia is due to open on the 20th of July, which is fantastic news. And WA, we have no idea. We have people looking at going across on the Indian Pacific. They're going in September. You can't even travel into WA at the moment. So we've got that issue that hurdle to get across before we can think about going overseas for the Trans-Tasman bubble. But we've hit a roadblock in that New Zealand has done fantastic, the South Pacific countries have been fantastic, and they're looking at doing their bubble between them. But there's a hitch with Australia because New Zealand has the most strict biosecurity laws. So my feeling is that the delay is because we're not at 0 yet. And New Zealand, if you've ever been there, you know how strict they are with going in and through their borders, much stricter than we are here in Australia. So while ever we still have some cases, I cannot see that getting up and running. And even if we do get the okay to go, I'm told that the pilots of the planes can't just go in, sit in the cockpit, turn the plane on and fly. They have to go through lots of training because of their downtime, and it will take some weeks for them to get back up to speed with their hours, back up to speed with their training, and to get that thing happening. So there's no date for that yet. So at this stage we still don't have New Zealand, but if and when that happens, that will be the first place that you will be able to go outside of Australia after our borders are open. Number 5, overseas, beyond New Zealand, beyond the South Pacific. Quite honestly, I have no idea. You may or may not know that Australians are banned from travelling overseas until the 15th of September. The only exception to that will be if we have some of those Trans-Tasman bubble exemptions, which haven't come in just yet. And that Qantas and Virgin have cancelled all their international flights moving forward. There are international flights coming in with other airlines, but Australians can't fly. So Australians are coming back to Australia from overseas still and being quarantined for 14 days. But this week, the states have said it's about time that the burden of the cost was passed on to those travellers. They've had plenty of time to get back to Australia, and they've been delaying that for whatever reason, and the state governments are paying for them to be quarantined. At some point that will stop. Some countries have a second wave coming. They're in the process of that, so they don't have COVID under control. And the Australian government is not going to let Australians leave if they think they're going to bring the virus back here. When you go overseas, if you did go, you would be up for a 14-day quarantine. So if you had a 2-week holiday, you need to quarantine for 14 days when you first got there. You could have your 2-week holiday. When you came home, you'd be up for a 14-day quarantine when you got back. You say, that's great, I'll let the state governments pay for that. But as you know, they're starting to consider winding that back. And the countries involved at the other end, they won't be paying for your accommodation for that. I have a travel agent in Canada that I follow, and he thought maybe he'll drive across the country because he can't sell holidays at the moment, can't sell cruises. He was going to drive across Canada, have a day or so in each place, take videos and just share that with his travellers. But he realised because of their quarantines, every single state has a 14-day quarantine, that if he spent 1 day in each state, then had to quarantine for 14 days, it would take him 3.5 months to get across Canada. It's not going to happen. And quarantine is not visiting the places, it's staying inbound in a hotel locked up. So for visiting a place 1 day and being in lockdown, this is just not going to happen. The other thing is a lot of countries this week, I got some information through from Cambodia, and their protocol at the moment is very high. You have to have a COVID test before you go. You have to have, when you arrive, you have to pay to be taken to a test facility and pay for the test that they have when you get there. And then you have to pay for your hotel for a few days while the tests come back. And if it's positive, you have to pay a certain amount. You have to have $3,000 in your bank account to cover any medical costs if that happens. Now, they're just one of the first countries that's done that. They may relax those, but the whole premise, I think, for going overseas at the moment is that the virus needs to be under control. Number 6, and something that you may not be aware of, is that you can't buy travel insurance at the moment. So who would go overseas without travel insurance? Certainly not any of our clients would ever go overseas without travel insurance. And at the moment, it's not for sale. So they're my 6 reasons when we look at the options to see if we'll be travelling overseas in 2020. In this next 6 months, I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe New Zealand, and that's only if we're very lucky and we continue to keep everything under control. I'd love to know what you think. I'd love to know if you think you'll be travelling overseas this year. If you are, where to? And what destination? Maybe it's early next year. Maybe you have another idea. I'd love to hear your comments about what you think about can we travel in 2020. If this information has been valuable, please like and subscribe, hit the bell so that you get the information as I post my videos here for you. And I'll be back with some more information on the protocols with regard to COVID moving forward for travel. Have a great day. See you soon.